Your New Zealand bank takes no orders from Washington. It often behaves as though it does. Both of those sentences are true, and the space between them is worth understanding. New Zealand almost never writes its own sanctions. By law, this country mostly acts when the United Nations Security Council tells it to. Yet a Treasury decision in Washington can change what a New Zealand bank processes. The reason is not politics, it is plumbing. In August 2026, the United States announced a campaign against Iran's finances. The Treasury Secretary described it as an economic D-Day. Nearly 60 entities, individuals and vessels were named in one round. The stated aim was to close every economic pipeline reaching Tehran. The warning went wider than Iran itself. Any country acting as a financial artery for Iran risked removal from the dollar system. That threat has a technical name. Sanctions come in two kinds, and the difference matters enormously. Primary sanctions apply to a country's own people and companies. The United States tells American banks and American citizens what they may not do. That is ordinary. Every country does something similar. Secondary sanctions are the unusual kind. They target foreign firms that have never touched American soil. A bank in Auckland is not bound by American law, but it can be told that dealing with a sanctioned party carries a consequence. The consequence is losing access to United States dollars. Follow an ordinary payment, and the threat becomes concrete. A New Zealand exporter sells goods and is paid in United States dollars. Those dollars are not physically shipped anywhere. The payment moves between accounts, and dollar accounts in the end are held inside the United States. So a New Zealand bank keeps an account with an American bank. The industry calls that a correspondent account. Almost every cross-border dollar payment passes through one. Now the lever becomes visible. American regulators can require a United States bank to close a foreign bank's correspondent account. Once that account closes, the foreign bank cannot settle dollars at all. No court in New Zealand is involved. No New Zealand law is broken. The bank simply loses the ability to do a large part of its job. Ask how much of a threat that really is, and the numbers answer. One network carries most international payment messages between banks. In June 2026, the dollar carried about 50.1% of them. In trade finance, the dollar's share sits near 80%. Half the world's payments and most of its trade paperwork run through one currency. Whoever regulates that currency has reached far beyond their own borders. This is why compliance officers, not diplomats, often make the final call. New Zealand's own legal position is genuinely unusual. Most comparable countries have a general sanctions law. It lets their government name a target and impose measures whenever it judges that necessary. Australia has one, the United Kingdom has one, the European Union has one, New Zealand does not. Sanctions here are made through regulations under the United Nations Act 1946. That act lets New Zealand carry out what the Security Council has decided. It is a way of obeying a collective decision. It is not a tool of independent foreign policy. The gap in that arrangement is obvious once stated. 5 countries hold a veto on the Security Council. If one of them is the problem, the Council decides nothing. New Zealand met that wall in 2022. Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia holds a veto. No Security Council resolution was possible, so Parliament passed a separate statute, the Russia Sanctions Act 2022. It was the first time Parliament authorized sanctions with no Security Council resolution behind them. One country, one law, written for that situation alone. A general autonomous sanctions bill had been introduced back in 2017. It did not pass, and no government since has treated it as urgent. Iran shows the other half of the picture. In August 2025, Britain, France, and Germany triggered a mechanism known as snapback. It had been built into the nuclear agreement years earlier. 30 days later, old United Nations sanctions on Iran returned automatically. The date was the 28th of September, 2025. Because the Security Council had spoken, New Zealand's own system switched on. The United Nations Sanctions Iran regulations came into force soon after. The date was the 18th of October, 2025. They apply to anyone in New Zealand and to New Zealanders operating overseas. Asset freezes, travel bans, and controls on nuclear and military goods all came back. From the 1st of February 2026, a new step applied. Businesses wanting to trade with Iran had to register first. The registration goes to a sanctions unit inside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, so New Zealand law now covered Iran because the United Nations required it. But read the official guidance for exporters and one line stands out. Businesses are told to consider foreign autonomous sanctions regimes as well. The examples given are the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and the European Union. A New Zealand ministry, advising New Zealand companies, points them toward other countries' rules. That is not weakness. It is an accurate description of the world. You may already have met the domestic edge of this system without noticing. Under anti-money laundering law, New Zealand banks must know who their customers are. They screen names against sanctions lists before money moves. Those lists are not only New Zealand's. That is why some transfers meet questions, a delay, or a polite refusal. The teller is not making foreign policy. Somebody upstream decided the risk was not worth a correspondent account. The honest summary has two halves. In law, New Zealand keeps its independence and uses sanctions sparingly. Practically, this country lives inside a financial system somebody else regulates. Sovereignty over your own law is real. Sovereignty over the currency that carries your payments is a different thing. New Zealand has never had that.